What if Darth Vader went to war with Sauron and Middle Earth? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Thrawn stands on the bridge of his Star Destroyer, watching the new world on his viewport. Beside him, Darth Vader observes Ennor as well, silent as a statue. Thrawn is about to deploy scouts onto the surface, but Vader shakes his head and says he already knows where they are to be sent. What Thrawn doesn't know is that Palpatine had sensed an anomaly in the Force. A strange convergence is caused by Frodo using the One Ring. He must now have it, and sends this ship to retrieve it before the rebels learn of it. Meanwhile, the Fellowship finds themselves in trouble as they sprint through the woods, followed closely by dozens of Uruk-Hai warriors. At the center of the battle is Boromir, beating back an orc who gets in his way, but suddenly an arrow strikes him and sends him stumbling to the ground. The Uruk-Hai warrior notches a second arrow, ignoring the rocks thrown by the hobbits nearby, as he moves to finish Boromir off. But something else gets his attention, a loud sound like a shriek. He looks up and sees a pair of TIE fighters zipping across the trees. His eyes widen as they unleash a burst of laser fire, throwing aside his soldiers. The Uruk-Hai fall to the ground as a clearing is made and an Imperial shuttle descends. Dozens of stormtroopers streak out, blasters firing upon the survivors. The rest advance forward with almost machine-like determination. Their guns easily cut through the orcs' armor. At their head, Vader advances toward them. Tossing aside his bow, Lurtz draws his sword and rushes at the Dark Lord. With a cry, he raises his sword high and prepares to cut him down. Vader swings his arm, and there is a brief flash as the lightsaber slices off Lurtz's head and throws him aside before advancing towards Boromir.
I sense the artifact's presence on you. Where is it?
I won't tell you.
I believe you.
Vader drives his lightsaber into his heart, but from the distance, Aragorn watches as his friend dies. But Vader spots them and sprints forward, quickly closing in on them. Aragorn shields Frodo and draws his sword, but suddenly a shape moves between them. Gandalf raises his staff.
Back, monster!
He unleashes a burst of lightning. Vader catches the lightning with his lightsaber and turns it aside, blackening the trees around him as he advances.
The artifact, Old One. Give it to me and I will ensure you and your companions die quickly.
Do not underestimate the powers of this world.
He waves his staff in the air and thrusts it at Vader as a gust of wind comes flying, sending his cloak billowing. Yet the Dark Lord takes a step forward and begins to advance. Gandalf turns to the trees and raises his hand. The branches come to life, raining leaves on Vader and obscuring his vision. Cursing, Vader slashes at them, but then a branch lashes out at him, catching him by the arm. Another follows and holds him in place. They pull his arms taut and lift him off the ground, but Vader takes a deep breath and unleashes a burst of raw power that shatters the trees. Seeing his companions gone, Gandalf slams his staff and disappears in a puff of smoke.
We finished off those creatures, but what are they?
Obstacles. Inform Admiral Thrawn to deploy his army. We will level this world if necessary to find it.
Vader deems the forces of Mordor to be his greatest threat, so he sends his armies out against them first. The Imperial forces swarm across Mordor, with TIE fighters leading their charge, the distinctive hum of their ships acting as a harbinger of destruction. They escort a fleet of TIE bombers that lay waste to the country. Saruman's aerial cavalry is useless against them, with fell beasts being little more than target practice for the TIE fighters. Meanwhile, on the ground, stormtroopers march in unbreakable lines, supported by AT-ATs and AT-STs, that crush the crude weapons of the orcs. Even the mighty Mumakil, used by the Haradim, cannot topple these war machines. Factories, fortresses, and dwellings of Saruman's armies fall to this onslaught. Those underground are shattered by the Star Destroyer that looms overhead. The destruction is so one-sided that Imperial casualties are measured in the hundreds, while the armies of Mordor lose tens of thousands. The forces of humanity watch this with bated breath. While they initially celebrate the destruction of Mordor, Cooler heads know that this is only a matter of time before Vader turns his attention to them, so they strengthen their position for the inevitable war. The Fellowship is among these few, and temporarily halts their quest in search of new allies. Among them is Aragorn, who journeys to Dwimmerberg. The winds howl, carrying the faint whisper of the damned, talking to him, whispering to his ears. But Aragorn does not let himself be intimidated as he makes his way into the caves. The dead are sickly green color surrounding their bony forms. The spirits brandish weapons and begin to surround him, but Aragorn raises his sword.
The hour has come. The shadow of war is upon us. An evil that you can hardly imagine. I need your strength once again. Will you fight with me?
The dead stare at him with hollow eyes, approaching, but Aragorn raises his sword once again, letting the light reflect off its blade as he holds it up to them.
Follow me, and your oath shall be fulfilled. Fight for me, and I will grant you peace.
We shall follow you, heir of Isildur. Lead us, and our swords shall awaken.
Gandalf, meanwhile, travels to the ruins of Mordor, approaching the burned-out remains of one of Saruman's fortresses which was attacked. The few Uruk-Hai survivors pick through the ruins, gathering whatever they can use. At their head, Saruman oversees their work. As Gandalf approaches, the orcs ready their weapons, but Saruman waves them off.
What brings you here, Gandalf the White? Do you seek counsel, or have you come to gloat?
Neither. There is no time for old rivalries, Saruman. This Darth Vader has laid waste to your lands. In all my years, I've never seen the forces of Mordor brought to heel. He is far too dangerous to be left unchecked.
Vader. I have felt his power. He is unlike anything we have faced before.
Then join us, Saruman. For all our differences, this is still your world as much as it is mine. Put aside your ambitions. Together we must stand against this new threat, or we shall fall before its thumb.
Very well, Gandalf. I shall forge an alliance. For now.
In the elven haven of Lothlorien, the rest of the Fellowship searches for the elves in hope of creating an alliance. They ride under the golden leaves of the mallow trees.
Do you think the elves will help us? They must. This is not just a battle for men or hobbits, but for all who dwell in Middle-earth. The power of Darth Vader is unlike anything we've ever faced. Even Sauron trembles before him.
As they travel through the Fangorn forest, the trees continue to rustle, but their bodies begin to change and shift as they take the form of an ancient Ent, Treebeard.
It laments. The trees have been listening. We know of this Vader. A darkness we have not seen since ancient times. The forest remembers, and the Ents will march. We shall lend our strength.
The great Ent escorts them to Rivendell, where the leaders of the Free People gather. There the elves pledge their support to an alliance, but to their surprise, they are soon joined by Aragorn, and to the surprise of all, Saruman with his remaining Uruk-Hai. But even with this army, many are still skeptical of success. The armies of the Empire seem endless, and they have already terrorized large sections of Middle-earth. In particular, they are worried about the Star Destroyer. Though stormtroopers can be killed and TIE fighters destroyed, that ship is like nothing the Free People have ever seen, and must be destroyed if they have a chance. Luckily for them, Saruman and Gandalf believe that they have a plan for destroying it, but this requires them to gather forces in a place to lure the Imperials out, a place they can make their stand. They select the Fortress of Helm's Deep as one of the strongest castles in Middle-earth. There the humans, elves, ents, and orcs gather to face the Empire. Everyone gathers for a huge fight at Helm's Deep, placing the ring there and knowing Vader will come for it. But across the galaxy, the convergence did not just stir Palpatine's attention, but those few Jedi who survived, Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, all sensed it just the same, and they realized that the time to act was now. Luke is taken to Dagobah to train in preparation to retrieve this ring, because if that power should fall to Palpatine, then the entire galaxy would be at his mercy. While Vader is rampaging across Middle Earth, Luke continues to train until the time is right to confront the threat. In Helm's Deep, the free people of Middle-earth gather for their stand. Rohan's soldiers stand on the battlements alongside dwarves and elves. Even the orcs and Uruk-Hai sharpen their blades in anticipation for the battle.
This fortress has never fallen, and it will not fall today.
They come with a power beyond what we've ever faced. But the strength of those walls and the unity of Middle-earth will hold.
But as they speak the words, a piercing sound echoes through the mountains, a sound that's unnerved even the fiercest orcs, the scream of TIE fighters. Behind them, Imperial walkers lumber through the valley, heralding the arrival of hundreds of stormtroopers. TIE fighters zoom overhead, firing their blasters into the walls of Helm's Deep. Orcish ballista launch bolts into the sky, striking down several TIE fighters. Elven archers loose a hail of arrows, many finding their marks in the stormtroopers advancing across the valley floor. The narrow valley funnels the Imperials into tight formations, and the defenders seize the advantage. Arrows rain down from the high ground, striking stormtroopers with deadly precision. There the dead rush forward, their ghostly weapons hacking apart stormtroopers with ease, while blaster bolts bounce harmlessly against them. Human soldiers and elves lined along the parapets unleash volley after volley, while trebuchet launch flaming stones at the advancing walkers. Logs and boulders are rolled down from the valley, crushing stormtroopers and even downing a few AT-STs who are unbalanced by the attack. From above, the aerial cavalry of Rohan, mounted on great eagles and orcs on fell beasts, make daring hit-and-run attacks on the TIE fighters, talons tearing through metal as they knock fighters out of the sky. Riders on horseback speed into the valley, flanking the Imperial forces and cutting down stormtroopers before retreating to the fortress. Despite the overwhelming power of the Empire's advanced technology, the defenders of Helm's Deep hold strong, and then the Ents join in. Treebeard leads his kin in a furious assault, their massive wooden limbs smashing into the legs of AT-ATs, toppling the great machines.
These iron machines will stand not long.
For a moment, it seems as though the battle might be won. The Imperial advance slows as their lines fall into chaos. But then, the air grows cold, and the shadow of something far worse falls upon them. From the clouds above, Thrawn's Star Destroyer emerges and casts a dark shadow over Helm's Deep. The defenders on the walls look up in horror as the ship's cannons begin to rain destruction down on the fortress. The walls shake violently as explosions rock the battlements. The once impregnable fortress begins to crumble under the relentless bombardment. Inside the Tower of Helm's Deep, Gandalf and Saruman work furiously. Their staves glow with ancient power as they chant together, weaving a spell of immense force. They know that Helm's Deep cannot hold against the might of the Star Destroyer for long. They need to strike back.
The magic of Middle-earth and the power of the old world can still harm their machines.
As the pair chants, they unleash their magic. A beam of pure light shoots forth from the tower, striking the Star Destroyer's shield with a crackling, thunderous force. The great ship's shields flicker, and then a portion of its hull erupts in flames. The Star Destroyer reels from the blow, listing in the sky. Cheers erupt from the defenders below as they see the Star Destroyer begin to descend. But then it slowly rights itself as Thrawn takes control of the situation and unleashes another barrage of turbo laser fire. Sections of the outer defenses crumble, sending rubble crashing down into the valley. The once mighty walls that stood for centuries begin to fall. The stormtroopers surge forward. With the outer defenses weakened, they pour into the breaches. Aragorn and Legolas fight side by side, cutting down stormtroopers with swords and bows. but the overwhelming numbers begin to take their toll. Gimli stands atop the ramparts, swinging his axe at the advancing troops. In the valley below, the Ents continue their assault, but the Star Destroyer's fire has weakened their numbers. Treebeard himself takes a hit, his great wooden form ablaze as he staggers back into the forest.
Hold the line! We fight for Middle-earth. We fight for our freedom.
The defenders gather for one final stand. Elves, dwarves, men, and orcs fight side by side, their weapons clashing with the stormtroopers' blasters. Above them, the Star Destroyer continues its bombardment, its cannons tearing through the remaining defenses. Gandalf and Saruman watch from the tower. Their last-ditch efforts have only partially succeeded in damaging the Star Destroyer. Saruman collapses to the ground, having used most of his energy in that attack, and looks on the verge of death.
We cannot hold much longer. Their numbers are too great. Then we fight until the end.
Just as hope begins to fade, a deafening roar erupts through the skies, followed by explosions in the Imperial ranks. The massive forms of the AT-AT walkers tremble and collapse one after another. A squadron of X-Wings cut through the dark clouds, their laser cannons lighting up the battlefield as they strafe the Imperial forces. The defenders of Helm's Deep look to the sky, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief. A cheer goes out to the survivors as the X-Wings fly overhead and whirl up to face the Star Destroyer. At their head, Luke leads his pilots to finish off the wounded Star Destroyer. Flames erupt in its hull as the weakened structure collapses in on itself from a barrage of proton torpedoes. It crashes with an earth-shattering impact, sending shockwaves through the battlefield and crushing the Imperial forces beneath it. From the hills beyond Helm's Deep, another sight emerges. At first, it is a distant shimmer. Tiny figures gather on the horizon. As the smoke clears, the unmistakable form of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi appear, leading a host of rebel troopers. Hundreds of rebel soldiers stream over the ridge, their blasters raised as they charge toward the Imperial forces, flanking them from behind. Yoda moves through the battlefield with unmatched speed and precision, his small form leaping through the air as he slices through Imperial forces. Obi-Wan joins him, his blue blade a blur as countless stormtroopers fall before them. Caught between the fortress defenders and the rebel forces behind them, the Imperial forces falter. With the Star Destroyer gone and their walkers destroyed, the Imperial forces have no choice but to surrender. But amid the chaos, a single TIE fighter rockets away from the battlefield, dodging the debris of the Star Destroyer. Inside is Darth Vader. In his hands, he has the one ring which he stole in the chaos of the battle. From the ruined walls, Aragorn hears the report from the guards.
No. The ring. It's gone. Vader has taken it. The yellow-bellied monster. He's taken it.
Legolas, Aragorn, Frodo, and Gimli mount up and ride after Vader, while the defenders finish off the remaining Imperials. Gandalf reluctantly leaves the body of Saruman and joins his friends. Vader's escape catches the attention of the rebels, too. Obi-Wan and Yoda call for transport, while Luke breaks off to join them. Meanwhile, Vader's TIE fighter speeds through the clouds. He feels a dark presence stirring in the depths of his mind. The air around him grows heavy, and his vision is filled with a familiar, fiery eye.
I see you, Dark Lord of the Sith.
Who are you?
I am Sauron, the true master of the One Ring, and I offer you power beyond your imagination. I sense that you do not wish to hand over this ring as you were ordered to.
No, I do not.
Then keep it. Use it. Join me. And together we can destroy the Emperor. The ring will give you the strength to overthrow Palpatine, to rule the galaxy in your own name.
Vader's breath echoes through the cockpit. The power of the ring could give him the means to destroy his enemies, to take the throne for himself. And Sauron, too, seeks to rise again, using Vader to regain his strength.
Very well.
Vader's stronghold looms ahead, one of the captured Mordor fortresses where the Dark Lord has retreated to secure his prize, the One Ring. Aragorn, Gandalf, Frodo, Legolas, and Gimli make their way cautiously, tailing Vader to a vast chamber where he stands alone, the ring in his hand.
Enough! This ends here.
You are too late.
His black-gloved fingers tighten around the One Ring.
You don't know the true power of the dark side. With this, I will become more powerful than any Jedi or Sith who has ever lived.
Gandalf hurls bolts of lightning from his staff, leaving Vader to block the attack with the Force. Legolas and Gimli follow close behind, arrows and axe striking towards Vader. Frodo stays back, clutching his small blade. Vader's red lightsaber ignites, sweeping with terrifying precision as he blocks their attacks, catching Legolas's arrow and hurling it back. He faces Aragorn, whose blade is the only thing that can face his lightsaber head-on. They clash several times, but Aragorn holds firm and tries to push Vader back while Gimli tries to strike from the side. But Vader sees this and slides under the blow and kicks the dwarf aside. Aragorn senses the opening and brings his weapon down, striking a blow on his shoulder. Vader winces and then comes home again, raining strikes down on Aragorn just as Legolas leaps in, pulling a knife and driving it into his side. Vader roars and reaches out for him, but the elf is already sliding away. Gimli suddenly barrels from behind and knocks Vader over. At that moment, he feels a fireball strike his chest and sends him tumbling to the ground. The four of them surround him, but Vader extends his hands out and throws them back with the Force. Aragorn staggers and tries to attack, but Vader is ready. He turns and drives his lightsaber into his chest. The rest can only watch in horror as the human falls to the ground. The air shimmers as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and Luke Skywalker enter the stronghold, their lightsabers ignited.
This madness must end, Vader.
Obi-Wan, Master Yoda, you are too late.
He places the ring on his finger and vanishes without a trace. Suddenly, Yoda is thrown across the room, while sparks flash in front of Obi-Wan as he deflects an invisible lightsaber. The Fellowship group up and stand side by side as Luke joins them. But suddenly, Gimli takes a blow to the face, and Legolas's bow shatters. Gandalf counters with wind, but he disappears. The room erupts into chaos as they find themselves tangling with an invisible foe. They find themselves standing back to back as they try to cover each other and protect their blind spots. The only ones who seem to sense where Vader is are Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Gandalf. They shout warnings to the others whenever the Dark Lord appears. Frodo suddenly cries out as the lightsaber buries itself into his chest, and then moves to Gandalf. Luke steps between them and blocks the attack. As their lightsabers clash, Vader feels something reaching out to him in the Force, a familiar presence that extends past the powers of the ring.
Father!
There is something there, something familiar. For the first time in years, Vader feels a pang of doubt, a flicker of emotion that disrupts his focus. His movements become less precise. His strikes falter.
You don't have to do this.
Who are you?
He is your son, Anakin.
My son?
Yes, Father. You can turn away from this. You still have a choice.
Vader's hand trembles as he grips his lightsaber, the weight of the ring now unbearable. For a moment, something reaches out to him, past the dark side and past the ring. Vader slowly reaches for the ring, his fingers trembling as he begins to pull it from his hand. But before he can drop the ring, the chamber suddenly erupts in a crackle of malevolent energy.
Foolish apprentice. Did you truly believe you could defy me?
Vader takes a burst of lightning from behind. His body convulses as he's thrown forward, crumpling to the ground. Yoda and Obi-Wan and the others raise their weapons. From the shadows, a figure steps forward, cloaked in black. Obi-Wan and Yoda recognize Palpatine's scarred face, but something is off. His eyes are no longer his own. They burn with a different light. Sauron's light. Palpatine's voice rings out, but with a deeper, otherworldly tone, as if the two voices speak as one.
Did you think I would lose this easily?
I struck a bargain.
Just in case Vader betrayed me.
I reached out across the void.
The cosmos to his master, Palpatine. And now we are one. I had the pleasure of absorbing the last
Of Sauron's energy as well.
How Dooku ended up here after I witnessed his death, even more powerful, must be studied.
Yoda's green saber ignites first, followed by Obi-Wan's blue blade. Gandalf steps beside them, his staff glowing with fierce energy.
You've made a grave mistake. We won't let you take him, or the ring.
The Dark Lord strikes first, unleashing a torrent of force lightning and dark magic that floods the chamber. Yoda leaps into action, his saber deflecting the energy while Obi-Wan charges forward through the open air. His lightsaber clashes with the Emperor's. Luke follows closely behind, lashing out and grazing his robe, but unable to strike flesh before the Dark Lord slams Luke into the ground. Gandalf hurls blasts of lightning from his staff, each one colliding with dark magic pouring from the Dark Lords, who channel bursts of dark energy. The explosion rocks the building to its very foundations. The shadows almost seem alive as they inch forward and lash at the group. Gimli and Legolas fight fiercely, keeping back waves of dark energy. This provides the Jedi with space to retreat behind while protecting Vader's fallen form. The only one who seems unaffected is Gandalf. Each step he takes radiates light, dissipating the shadows and drawing the Dark Lord's attention. A storm of black magic envelops the wizard, dragging him away from the others. Gandalf tries to channel his energy, unleashing a burst of lightning that shatters his hold over them. But as he falls, the Dark Lords thrust their hands out, and several shards of dark energy lash at him, striking at his sides. The light around the wizard begins to fade. Yoda and Obi-Wan try to block his path, their lightsabers lashing out. The Dark Lords parry their attacks without giving ground. They spin their lightsabers and lunge forward. The two Jedi stumble back under the onslaught and allow this joint form of Palpatine and Sauron to rush at Gandalf. The wizard throws a few fireballs, but these are easily deflected. In a desperate move, he raises his staff to defend against the attack, but this easily shatters under their lightsaber and strikes Gandalf across his chest. He slumps to the ground, motionless. The loss of Gandalf sends a ripple of despair through the group. Legolas and Gimli both rush at the Dark Lords, but he throws them aside with the Force. He approaches Vader, who still holds the ring in his hand, but Luke stands in his way. Obi-Wan and Yoda flank him, their blades striking in perfect harmony. The Emperor whirls and spins, blocking their attacks, but despite everything, the three refuse to surrender. Palpatine's eyes burn with fury as he unleashes another wave of Force energy. This time, Luke is ready and leaps over, striking him across the side. The Dark Lords roar in pain and stumble back as their powers falter. Obi-Wan and Yoda renew their offensive, pushing him back over the edge of the tower. Although he tries to defend, a few more attacks get through, and he falls to his knees. With one last desperate attack, Sauron and Palpatine attempt to unleash another wave of dark power, but Luke's lightsaber slices through his hand, sending the power dissipating around him. Yoda and Obi-Wan strike in unison, their blades piercing through the dark magic surrounding him. The duo falls, collapsing to the floor, his form withering as the darkness that sustained him is torn apart. His last breath is a howl of frustration and defeat. With the pair defeated, the remains of the Fellowship along with their Jedi allies return to Helm's Deep, where the remnants of the Imperials are being held captive. Most of them are escorted back by the rebels to face justice, including Thrawn. With Palpatine defeated, the rebels now return to their galaxy and take advantage of the period of weakness, establishing themselves as the dominant government and gather new allies. Many other Imperials remain on Middle Earth as prisoners to help rebuild their planet. Among them is Darth Vader, who chooses exile for his crimes. Alongside him, Luke remains behind to help rehabilitate his father. He knows Vader committed many crimes, and it will take years before he is truly forgiven, but his son will remain with him until then. They start by giving Gandalf, Frodo, and Aragorn a proper funeral. They transport their bodies to Mount Doom and gently lay them into the pools of lava. As they do, they place the One Ring in Gandalf's hand, ensuring their sacrifice isn't for nothing. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.